Hey guys, Mike Toy, Bonsai Boise. So I took some cuttings off of the giant hibiscus plant that I've got out front. I posted a video on this the other day about the aphids and my victory over them, and I'm pretty sure the war is won, at least mostly. There's still a lot of dead aphids on here, but anyways, the point of this video isn't about the aphids. The point of this video is to just show kind of how I do propagation and how I take cuttings and some methods that have and haven't worked for me, and then just a little bit of info on hibiscus. So let's dive in. Alright, so hibiscus plants, they are a deciduous shrub that can be used like a hedge type plant, or you can prune it in such a way that it acts as a tree. They make good bonsai, at least in my experience, but they are very prone to aphids, if I haven't said that enough already. But I don't know what it is about hibiscus plants. I've had it right next to certain maples and oaks, and maples and oaks have been fine and untouched. All the bugs in the world go straight for hibiscus, most likely because they're flowering and they're sweeter, more sugars in the sap and whatnot. At least that's what I'm told. I don't actually know all the reasons behind that. I just know that that's the case. They do flower, as I mentioned, and flowers can be anything between, this one is white. I've seen yellow, I've seen orange, I've seen pink, maybe other colors too, but that's what I've seen. So that's a little bit about hibiscus plants. So what I do for cuttings, I try a range of things. So let's start with the basics with cuttings. When it comes to cuttings, some of the biggest mistakes that I have made, and that I think other people have probably made and still make, is I leave too much foliage on because there's no roots to support it. So the foliage, that's where the water goes, and if there's no roots to soak up the water and send up to the foliage, it dries up and dies. So that's mistake number one, leaving too much foliage. Mistake number two is putting it out in direct sunlight. My gut reaction with plants when they're not doing well is to give it more light and more water. But that doesn't work with cuttings because, again, too much sunlight puts too much stress on the plant and no roots to support it. So, generally speaking, I take off most of the foliage, like so. Take that big one off there. Like in this case, I'd probably leave something like this, maybe even like that. So it's semi-hardwood. So there's basically three types. There's softwood, which is kind of like this. See how it's green? That's considered softwood. There is hardwood, which is this here. And then there's semi-hardwood, which is somewhere in between. Fairly straightforward. Soil. I've used a lot of different mixes. I've seen people use just dirt. I've seen people use bonsai soil. I've used bonsai soil. I've seen people use just peat moss, just sphagnum moss, sand. I've heard all kinds of different things. I mean, use what works best for you. I typically use a mixture of some bonsai soil, meaning well-draining soil with some turfus in there, maybe some perlite, and a lot of peat moss and some sand. It doesn't have to be an exact formula. Mine sure isn't. Sometimes I'm just eyeballing it, but for the most part, that's what I use. Put it in the pot. I water it down real good before I start. That way, when I take the cuttings, I can just stick them right in, and they just hold. You don't water it down first. When you stick it in there, the sand shifts, and then when you do water it, they end up all over the place and all mixed match. So my advice would be to water it first. So I'm going to walk you through a cutting here. So this here, as stated before, too much foliage. One other thing I do, at the bottom, you can see how I leave some stem on there. I am told, and I have experienced, that does give kind of a head start to any roots. So, I mean, I'm not in there to see what's exactly going on, but it makes sense, and I've tried it, and it's kind of works, so I'm going to continue doing it. Now, what is disturbing me, though, is I'm seeing a lot of dead aphids on here, more than I thought would be on there. I may have to go and douse that plant down again. Alright, another note, so see these buds here? These are bulbs where flowers were going to sprout. get rid of those. Those are a huge drain on energy. Anytime I've ever left them, it didn't work. What'll happen is they're still kind of in the process of blooming, and they might even bloom while they're in here, but it just takes all the energy and it just dies. So, word of the wise, get rid of the bulbs. Probably works better on a stem that didn't have any bulbs, to be honest. But so that's probably a little too much foliage. I'm going to get rid of a little more. That's probably good right there. So you got semi-hardwood, a little bit of foliage, not a whole lot. Just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and burn through these, and I'm going to fast forward through it in fast motion, so you don't have to hear me just talk ad nauseum the whole time and watch every single leaf. But I'm going to burn through these and stick them in this pot. I'm sure I've got more than enough. I'm probably going to have to throw a lot of this away and maybe find another pot if I've got some really good pieces that I want to keep. But we'll summarize at the end. So meet you there. Alright, so there we go. I think I got enough. I don't need the rest of these. I mean, it's a big plant. If I ever want more cuttings, I can go get more cuttings. This was just a minor trim that I wanted to do just to clean up the plant anyway, so I don't feel super guilty for wasting these. But as you can see, that's kind of the idea there. Let's see if I can give you a better look. Get these out of the way. So, also, as you can see, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, some of these, leaves are just cut in half. I mean, it really doesn't have to be perfect. It just, you want to trim it down so that its foliage is reduced heavily. And I experiment. I put some hardwood, some semi-hardwood, some softwood, I think, right there. So that's my thing on cuttings with hibiscus. I've had good luck with it. I do have some cuttings still that survived from last year, some that are making it from this year. So I always take more because cuttings are weaker than normal sprouts from seeds or anything, so they die more frequently than other plants would. So I take a lot of them at a time. So hope that helped. If you get anything out of this, or if you have something to add, please leave comments. I'm always learning new stuff on every video that I post because somebody's got some cool advice or some cool experience. So I appreciate that. And please click like and subscribe too. I appreciate everybody who does. And you can see updates on these and on other plants that I've got, other trees. I've got several varieties. Some make it, some don't. I post my failures as much as I post my wins for the sake of other people learning, because this is how I learned. I learned from watching other guys on YouTube, so I figure I can post my journey and my experience too so that other people can learn from my failures and successes. So anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night.